Jamen velkommen alle sammen til et webinar om, jeg hedder Per Bak, kan jeg sige. Jeg kommer fra Sociale Entreprenører i Danmark, og ved siden af mig sidder
Anne Rahbæk. Jeg er projektleder i Rummelig Genstart, som ligger i projekter i Midt.
Ja, og vi holder det her arrangement i et samarbejde mellem Rummelig Genstart, Komitéen for Socialøkonomi og så Sociale Entreprenører i Danmark. Et arrangement om den europæiske handlingsplan for socialøkonomi, det der på godt dansk eller engelsk hedder European Socialøkonomi Action Plan. Og arrangementet her er sådan set en opfølgning på en del af et arrangement, vi havde tilbage i november, hvor vi havde Mia Rossi Gray med nede fra EU-Kommissionens afdeling for beskæftigelse og sociale anliggender og inklusion, som fortalte lidt om, hvad man kunne forvente sig af den her nye handlingsplan, der blev lanceret tilbage i december 2021. Men nu ligger planen der, og man har faktisk allerede haft et første ministermøde i forhold til implementeringen, og vi vil gerne bruge det her arrangement til at kigge lidt dybere ind i, hvad er det så, den her handlingsplan konkret indeholder af initiativer, og den ene, hvis man har snydt lidt og kigget lidt i teksten, så kan man faktisk se, at der er en masse fine muligheder og fine intentioner i forhold til at styrke det her felt i de 27 medlemslande i EU. Men hvad den indeholder nærmere, vil vi prøve at få Margit Perko, som sidder nede i EU's afdeling for beskæftigelse og sociale forhold og inklusion, til at sige lidt mere om. Og så har vi spurgt Marianne Finn, som er medlem af Europa-parlamentet for Socialdemokratiet, og også sidder i udvalget, der arbejder med beskæftigelse og sociale forhold. Lidt om hun kunne komme ind på, hvad kan vi forvente os, at sådan en handlingsplan her kan betyde i en dansk kontekst. But I think I will start up already now, so I can give the floor to Margit Perko, who is a policy officer at the DG Employment at the European Commission. And Margit, we have been in a dialogue with you. If you could tell us a little bit, or take us a little bit more into the details of the Social Economy Action Plan. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation. I understand it's a bit difficult in these times with the Ukraine to do anything that is like business as usual. Nevertheless, I will take the time to present you the action plan in a bit more detail. You had the presentation by Mia before the action plan was adopted, and now we have the document here. And I would like to go through the presentation a bit. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions during the presentation. I will also leave some time for question afterwards, and I will stay in the webinar until the end in case there are more questions. I will also share my presentation after the event, so it should be available then for you afterwards.
Thank you.
Let me quickly share my screen. So it should work. The action plan for the social economy, building an economy that works for people, is the subtitle. And I will just give you a bit of, oh, I cannot switch the slide. No, it works. So just a bit of a background story. As you know, there has been quite a build-up to the action plan. In 2011, there was the Social Business Initiative. In 2015, there were council conclusions on the social economy. In 2016, we had a Start and Scale Up initiative. And then we had a phase of evidence gathering for the action plan where a lot of stakeholders contributed. Just to give us more background on what the social economy needs and what their vision would be for the action plan. And over this period of time, we also see like an increased attention for the topic of social economy. So we are obviously quite happy about that. And when we were drafting the action plan, many commissioners were interested. So that's really a progress in terms of awareness for the social economy and its potential. In principle, the social economy is an important factor in Europe. It depends a bit from country to country how big the share is. Overall, it's 6.3% of paid employment in Europe, approximately. There are some reservations with the numbers, so it's hard to get like really very accurate numbers. I understand for Denmark, it was around 5.9 at the time of the study. More than 13 million paid jobs in Europe, 2.8 million organizations. So it's quite a number of people who are involved with the social economy. And we think there is even more potential for it. But obviously, the social economy should not replace the public sector where it's working well. It's really to complement and to boost social innovation and just contribute to an economy that is putting people in the center. The action plan itself is the main document, and it came with 2 staff working documents, as we call it in the Commission. The staff working documents, they reflect a bit the evidence gathering phase. They summarize the collection of inputs from stakeholders in the consultation phase, and also various studies that had been conducted to gather evidence. The second staff working document is from DG GROW, that is scenarios towards co-creation of a transition pathway for more resilient, sustainable and digital proximity and social economy industrial ecosystem. There, the consultation has just closed yesterday, so I cannot give you the link anymore for the survey, but in principle, that's also a co-creation process to think about how the social economy can become more resilient, how we can help to boost digital skills, and just what can be useful for the social economy. The main document is available in all EU languages, the 2 staff working documents only in English. And I will maybe also put the link in the chat later so that you can access it easily. Oh, again, some troubles in changing the slide. So, as a background definition of the social economy, we opted for a quite broad approach. So it's not like a very hard legally binding definition, but we wanted it to include the whole social economy across Europe, which is quite diverse. So we said there are a number of organizations that are part of the social economy. That's social enterprises, cooperatives, associations, mutual benefit societies, and foundations. And there are 3 key features that define social economy. One is putting people first, like social or environmental purpose over profit. The second point is reinvestment of most of the profits and surpluses to carry out activities in the interest of members and or society at large. That would be the general interest part. And a democratic and or participatory governance, so internal structure of the social economy organizations. So that's a bit of a broader approach than from this social business initiative. And we are now looking at the social economy with traditional actors and also newer actors such as the social enterprises. In principle, the action plan is structured in 3 big chapters. The first one concerns framework conditions. The second one, opening up of opportunities. And the third one is around recognition and awareness raising. And I will go through them now one by one to highlight a bit what it's all about. Before I do that, maybe also a quick overview. In total, there are over 60 actions that we have listed in the action plan. A lot of them are for the Commission, but there are also a lot of them who are for the member states. And we had flagged 10 of the actions as key actions with a timeline when they should be delivered. And one of the most important key actions will be the Council recommendation. So the idea that following the action plan, there will also be a recommendation by the Council of the European Union, so the member states, endorsing the idea, giving additional guidance to member states, and that should be happening in 2023. So the preparations are now starting, and we are hoping to get all the member states on board with that. For example, on the 17th of February, there was an informal ministerial meeting. Denmark was unfortunately not present, but maybe some of the upcoming meetings, we'll see if we get their participation. Yeah, then another key action will be webinars and workshops for public officials, particularly in the area of public procurement. So local and regional partnerships between social economy entities and mainstream businesses. Then there we have one of the actions from the international area that is focused on the Western Balkans, Eastern Partnership and Southern Neighborhood. But there are also actions that are more like general for the international dimension. Another key action that will be very important will be the Social Economy Gateway. That will be a web page that should provide better information to how to access funding and some other guidance that is available. We will have a new Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy that will launch still this year. And then also new financial products under the InvestEU program. We will also support the development of social impact measurement and management. The transition pathway I have already mentioned, that's the GROW project they are focusing on this year. And there will also be a new European Competence Center for Social Innovation. So now I'm coming back to the first big chapter on framework conditions. So that refers mainly to policy and legal frameworks, state aid, public procurement, local, regional, and international levels. So various actions related to that. Overall, it needs to be noted that a lot of things are already in place in member states, and it can be interesting to foster like the exchange about best practices. So that's why we think we will want to encourage mutual learning and to provide opportunities and guidance so that member states can possibly recreate what has already worked in another member state. But obviously, you also have to take into account that the situation is very diverse in the social economy. So what works in one country may not be the right approach in another one. But still, we think it makes sense to highlight a bit the framework conditions and to offer guidance on this topic. It's also on the taxation issues that the situation is quite complex, and potentially we can look into that and offer guidance to member states. There's also a topic that came up in the consultation, the question of labels, certification schemes. There we are looking more into exploring what is out there, because there were also some concerns of going into this direction. It's not easy, and mutual recognition maybe sound easy, but it's not, because actually if you have a label, you are kind of excluding, you are setting up your criteria, and then you don't want to be forced to include other actors that are not following your criteria. So that's a bit of a complex topic, and we want to look at it with a study basically. And the council recommendation that will be developed we'll see how ambitious this will be. So we will discuss with our expert groups, and we hope that it will be an ambitious council recommendation. And we already hear a lot of desire what should be in this recommendation. We will see in the end if it can deliver all that. But yeah, we are hopeful that that will give an additional boost to the social economy if it also comes endorsed by the council. One important topic in terms of framework conditions is, of course, the topic of state aid. And there, in principle, the rules are maybe offering already more opportunities than some actors are aware. So we think that we should offer additional guidance to make better use of existing rules. And we will also want to do webinars or workshops with public procurement in the public sector, so that we really educate about what is already possible under the current rules, so that it's made better use of. In addition, we will also look into the upcoming what can be done on the general block exemption rules. There were some requests from especially work integration companies and disadvantaged workers, so that the ceilings could possibly be changed, and that will be looked into. Another big topic is the topic of socially responsible public procurement. As I mentioned already, we want to offer some guidance and train officials and also the social economy entities, so that they can make best use of the existing opportunities and promote this option to really put social criteria in public tenders. There is also this Buy Social initiative where we have an extensive guide. I can also maybe put it in a chat later. And we also need to look into our own commission practices. So we should kind of lead by example and also do social procurement in our own domain, which is not always easy, because if you, for example, you are purchasing some kind of digital solution for something, it's not always very straightforward how you could include social criteria in that. So that will be also a bit of a challenge for the Commission itself. We will also see at the regional and local level what can be done to support the existing ecosystems in the social economy. Many regional and local authorities have options, and I understand in Denmark it's also quite decentralized. And if you have people who are interested in developing something with the social economy, a lot of things can happen. So we think that we should try to capitalize on this potential of the regions and also in rural areas to make things happen for the community with the help of social economy. There are like several topics in the EU policies that lend itself to consider the social economy. For example, in the common agricultural policy, we have the social economy regions that will also play a big role. And we also want to enhance networks between businesses, regular businesses and the social economy. Plus, there will also be the call to member states to set up social economy contact points at the national level. This may be more important for some countries than for others, because some countries have very developed ecosystems and others are maybe less developed in that sense, so that you kind of lack a support structure for people who wanting to venture into social entrepreneurship. And there we think this national contact points could help. Also at the international level, we see a lot more attention for the social economy topic, which we want to use and to use the momentum to really make things happen beyond EU. We have our partners such as the OECD, the UN Task Force, and the ILO, who will be important. There will be a conference from the ILO this year, for example, and we will try to promote social economy also beyond EU. But this is, of course, not a one direction exercise. So we also want to learn from other regions of the world. So, for example, in South America, there is very active cooperatives. And so it's not the idea that the EU is exporting its ideas, but it's really also a chain exchange of experiences and mutual learning, so that we make good use of the social economy also in programs by the EU that are targeting international development and international cooperation. So there are a lot of detailed programs that we will need to look into to really make sure that we will also do something in terms of awareness raising, because it is much better known than previously, but not everyone knows what social economy is or is supposed to be. second chapter of the action plan refers to mainly capacity building, access to funding, green and digital transitions, social innovation. So it's really about opening up of opportunities. And examples include here for the actions, the social economy gateway, that should be like an entry point in delivering information, how to access funding, how to access guidance. So we will be developing this in more detail in this year and the coming year with stakeholders. There will be some opportunities to possibly contribute. We will also have the Youth Entrepreneurship Policy Academy that will be launched in cooperation with the OECD, most likely. And we will have the partnership and under the Pact for Skills, because that's also very relevant. How do you make sure that social enterprises and social economy organizations have the means available for upskilling their workers or for developing and venturing into the digital world? There is a lot of potential for social innovation in the digitalization area. So we think that this is something that might be interesting for many social enterprises. Also, there is the Erasmus program for young entrepreneurs, and that could also be relevant and for like practical exchange programs. Another very big topic is the access to finance. So there we really have like two strands. One is the Invest EU program that is supporting financial products mobilizing private finance. It's mainly about guarantees and equity, quasi-equity, to financial intermediaries who would then in turn help to fund social economy. So the idea is to have like a bit of a multiplier effect by mobilizing additional funding. In parallel, there is also the grant option that will continue under the ESF+. And obviously many other EU programs such as Horizon Europe, Erasmus, Creative Europe also have like some hooks where they can be useful for the social economy. And at the national level, the cohesion funds and the recovery and resilience facility may also be an option to do something for the social economy. But there we depend very much on what the member states want to do themselves. So we cannot tell them you have to do something in that domain for the social economy. It really depends on the member states if they take up the opportunity or not. And that's also one reason why awareness raising is very important for us. Yes, and another topic here is the social impact measurement and management. That is interesting for impact investing, but it's also a tricky subject because it can very easily come with additional burden of additional bureaucracy, and then you maybe spend more time on measuring the impact than actually creating the impact. So that's also something we will look a bit more closely into, how it can be done and which options exist so far. On the green and digital transition, I already mentioned it's partly a project of DG Grow, who will look for this transition pathways, development strategies for adopting to the green and digital transitions, which hopefully will shape Europe to a large degree in the coming years. And we hope that this is also something where we can support the social economy. Social innovation continues to be an important topic for us, of course, and there will be support in the ESF+ and also via Horizon Europe. With the European Social Innovation Catalyst Fund, and we'll see how that evolves. In principle, there are like many good ideas, and sometimes it's just about scaling them up or moving them to another country so that there can be more discussions around those new ideas. The last point is on awareness and recognition. That is basically, in a way, the underlying thing you need for the other things to happen, because without awareness of social economy and without belief that the social economy can contribute something to an economy that is more attractive and more in line with what people actually hope to get from the economy. And that's why we think we need to do more in terms of awareness raising. There is still a bit of a visibility problem. Not in every country the concept is well known. And we also have a big lack of data. So we have some studies about the scope of the social economy, but especially for some countries, it is not very reliable. So we also want to improve the available data by doing additional studies and to really make the case for the social economy, or learn that it's maybe we thought social economy is doing X, and in reality, if you look at it, maybe it's a bit different. So there's really a need to also solidify the data. And in parallel, obviously, we also want to communicate, and we will have, for example, a testimonial campaign in the second quarter of this year. I'm sorry. And when we do the council recommendation, we will possibly also do another wave of communication efforts. But in principle, that idea is also not to do like PR type of communication, but really communication that is useful for the stakeholders, that interacts with them, that gives them opportunities to contribute. And that way, we think that we can make the best out of the communication activities and really do something on the substance together with our stakeholders. The way forward, as you know, the horizon of the action plan is until 2030. So quite a long horizon to follow up on. We will have a midterm review in 2025. And we will also have the call to member states to adopt or update their social economy strategies and measures that should be then hopefully aligned with the recommendation. That's already my last slide. And now I'm happy for all your questions.
Thank you very much, Margit, for giving us a thorough and really fine overview over the content of the Social Economy Action Plan, and for keeping the time very precisely. Thank you for that also. So we have one question or a couple of questions here. Are you in contact with the ETUC for cooperation?
Not very concretely yet. In principle, we want to reach out to many stakeholders. We are currently really looking into how we will implement the initial, like it's, as I said, it's over 60 actions where we need to do something. So for each of them, we kind of need to set in place a process where we can and how we can involve the appropriate stakeholders. So we really want to involve as many of them as needed and as possible. But yeah, we are currently still a bit in the early stages, and we will involve them gradually as it makes sense, topic-wise and communication-wise. There will also be the event in Strasbourg at the beginning of May, 5th and 6th of May, you may be aware of. So that will be, for example, a first occasion where we will have an opportunity to meet stakeholders and to hear their concerns. We have the experts group that will also be consulted on various topics. So the same is for the ETUC. Where do you see the most relevant actions, programs to improve skills in the social economy and social enterprises? Yeah, it's a bit too early for me to really answer that on substance. We are wanting really to look into it. DigiGrow is working on this pathway. We think there is a lot in terms of digitalization that could help the social economy. But it can also go, I mean, it's not always only the digital skills that count. So sometimes it's, we will have to see which, there is this Pact for Skills. there is also this idea of individual learning accounts that DG Employment is currently working on. So that is the idea that everyone should have like a certain budget so that the person themselves can choose what kind of upskilling they want. And then it can be done according to their needs and not like just telling them and the active labor market agency is telling people what to do, but it would rather be the individual who would choose what is the most important for it. Sometimes that's of course in cooperation with the employer, and then you can have like both deciding together what would be most important for the person and the company. But it can also be very much bottom-up driven if this idea of the individual learning accounts would go through.
Thank you. And then there's a question around the social innovation centers. Do you know if it has been decided where the Center for Social Innovation will be situated? If not, please come to Denmark. There's a smiley here. I don't know if we have Clara with us today among the audience from the Center for Social Innovation, because if she's here, she might be. No. Okay. Then do you have?
So far, I have not heard like any like if it's, and I'm not even sure that it would be something with a physical location. So maybe it's a competence center that is like building on the expertise of several experts across Europe. So I'm currently not aware that it will be like a physical location necessarily. So, but don't quote me on that, and maybe I just have a gap in my knowledge. But I don't have any concrete information at that point that it would be in a specific city or something.
It's fine. I think we will also try to dive deeper into if there's anyone in the Danish context that has any knowledge about that, and put it out here on the webpage afterwards, together with the slides and the video from the webinar here. So, is there any further questions? I might have one for you. I recall hearing Nicolas Schmit talking about a wish to motivate the individual member states to make strategies for the social economy. Can you say something more about that?
That's indeed one of the goals. So we hope to really build momentum with the action plan. And we hope that it helps if it comes from several directions. So if the European Commission is saying, please, member states, look into this topic, we think it has a huge potential. Then also if the stakeholders themselves can rely on the action plan and come to their regional authorities and say, look, there is this European document and this idea sounds interesting. Could we look into this? Should we make some contacts, and should we contact European networks? So we really think that's like the best way of building momentum, that we have like really, if the topic comes from several directions. So if a local authority has never heard of social economy, then it needs a first contact so that they for the first time hear about it. But that will not do the trick. So you will need a second occasion where they hear from it, and then they hear it from a third person. And that's really how we hope that it will build the momentum. And we, as I said, this council recommendation, we hope that will also be a big factor in mobilizing the member states and really asking them to look into the topic and come up with national strategies. So that's what we think should be the catalyst. There's also from the OECD side some developments that will be upcoming that may also go in the direction of recommendations. So yeah. But the main focus for us in terms of member states will be the council recommendation. As I said, on the 17th of February, there was an informal ministerial meeting, and 22 or 23 member states were present. which is a higher number than ever before on the social economy topic. And so we seem to see an increased interest in the topic, and we hope it increases even further so that we can hopefully have an ambitious council recommendation.
Thank you very much, Margaret. And I think I will switch now to Danish, but you will be with us for the rest of the webinar. So if there's further questions, we can address you then. Ja, så går vi over til dansk igen, og vores næste gæst er Marianne Vind, som er medlem af Europa-Parlamentet for Socialdemokratiet. Og velkommen, Marianne. Tak fordi du var i stand til at være med os. Vi har spurgt dig, om du måske kunne sige lidt om, hvad den her nye handlingsplan kunne komme til at betyde i en dansk kontekst for det socialøkonomiske felt og de organisationer, der er. Så jeg vil overlade ord til dig, og så kan det være, at vi kan stille nogle spørgsmål bagefter.
Tak. Tusind tak, og tak for indbydelsen til at være med. Jeg er rigtig glad for, at I har rakt ud. Jeg tror faktisk, vi skulle prøve at snakke lidt mere sammen, fordi vi har jo meget den samme dagsorden, så det er virkelig interessant, og jeg håber på lidt debat her. Jeg vil bare sige, at jeg skal videre kl. 4, fordi der skal være en podcast, så vi kaster os ud i det. Det er meget interessant med den her sociale dimension, der er kommet på i EU. Og hvis jeg sådan lige går tilbage til, hvorfor... nu hørte jeg ikke lige helt indlægget, så jeg ved ikke, hvor meget jeg har taget med, men det er jo kommet på her efter finanskrisen, fordi EU er jo startet som et handelssamarbejde, hvor han fjerner toldmurene, og handelen skal flyde frit, og kapitalen har tjent mange penge på det. Så har vi haft den fri bevægelighed, som nogen har tjent mange penge på, og andre har mistet deres arbejde, deres livsgrundlag på grund af. Så vi har jo oplevet, at EU langsomt for nogens vedkommende er blevet fattigere, og for andres vedkommende er blevet rigere. Så vi har en stigende ulighed i Europa, og derfor er der kommet med fokus på at få den sociale dimension. Fordi vi skriver altså 2022, og det er bare ikke i orden, at der er mennesker, der er fattige i Europa. Og det kan jeg jo kun bakke over. Så er det nogle gange, hvor vi ikke er enige om, hvad det er for nogle løsninger, der skal til. Men målet, at vi skal have mere lighed i Europa, det er jo 100% i orden. Og nogle af de her principper, de handler om arbejdsmarkedsting, det handler om selve arbejdsforholdene, blandt andet også arbejdsmiljø, man ikke må blive skadet af at gå på arbejde, men der er også lønninger, anstændige lønninger, som en del af det. Og så er der jo mange omkring børn. Børn fylder meget i en social dimension, og det hænger jo på en eller anden måde også stadigvæk sammen. Fordi hvis mor og far tjener en løn, man ikke kan forsørge familien af, så vokser børnene op i fattigdom. Så selvom man måske har en god skole, så hjælper det ikke noget, hvis man vokser op i fattigdom. Så børn i fattigdom er et af de meget store områder, der bliver kigget meget på. Det kan så være svært at finde de rigtige løsninger måske. Og et andet område er også mennesker med handicap. Fordi vi har altså lande i Europa, hvor har man et handicap, så man ikke på noget tidspunkt kommer på arbejdsmarkedet, jamen, så skal man forsørge sig sin familie. Og det er uanstændigt. Altså, også med et handicap har man ret til at have en økonomi, ret til at få den pleje, man skal have, ret til at få de behandlinger, der skal til. Og det er jo svært i de lande, der har betalingssundhedssystemer. Det er ikke lige let for alle. Og i de lande, hvor man ikke har de rette plejefaciliteter, jamen så betyder det jo, at der er en i familien, der skal gå ud af arbejdsmarkedet og være derhjemme for at passe den, der har et handicap, der ikke selv kan være på arbejdsmarkedet. Og det er jo ikke den vej, vi ønsker at gå, og det er jo ikke den vej, vi har gået i Danmark på det her område. Det kan være til at diskutere, om det er godt nok i Danmark, men vi er trods alt på det her område længere fremme end mange andre lande. Men jeg tror måske, det jeg har bidt mest mærke i, det er, når der kommer de her best practice, de gode eksempler fra andre lande, fordi det er jo der, hvor vi for alvor kan rykke på det, fordi lave fælles EU-lovgivning på det, hvis vi går, så bliver det jo ned på detaljplan, hvor mange timers pleje har man krav på. Hvor fattige skal børn være, for at de lever i fattigdom? Altså, så er vi helt nede på det niveau, og det giver måske ikke mening at gøre det fra EU's side. Men det med, at vi begynder for alvor at få de gode, dem der har opfundet de nye tallerkener, lad os da få dem videre. Et eksempel. Der er lige kommet en opgørelse over, at vi har 6.500 hjemløse i Danmark lige nu. Det er mange. Det er faktisk uhyggelig mange. Det er jo ikke bare dem, vi ser på gaden. Det gælder også alle dem, der bor på en sofa på skift hos familie og venner. Den lidt mere skjulte hjemløshed, men man er hjemløs. Hvor et land som Finland, det er virkelig interessant, hvordan de har rykket på det. De har lige i skrivende stund 200 hjemløse. De har vendt den rundt og siger, har man sociale problemer, så er det allervigtigste, det er at få et sted at bo. Når man først har fået et sted at bo, så er der overskud til måske at komme ud af et misbrug, der er overskud til at søge et arbejde, der er overskud til at få styr på sit liv. Og det kan man ikke, når man er hjemløs. Altså slet ikke, når man sover på gaden, hvor man ikke har mulighed for at tage et bad, så kan du ikke gå ud og søge arbejde, så har man ikke nogen adresse, alle de der ting. Men det der med at have en adresse og en bopæl, det betyder noget for os alle sammen som mennesker, at vi har et sted, vi hører til. Det er vores trygge base, og så kan man bygge ovenpå derfra. Det er bare et af de her mange eksempler, som vi i det udvalg, jeg sidder i, der hedder beskæftigelse og sociale anliggender, fordi de ting er koblet her i parlamentet. Der synes jeg, det er virkelig interessant, når vi får de her best practice eksempler frem, fordi det er jo det, vi skal lære af. Det er svært at forestille sig, at vi kan lave direkte EU-lovgivning på mange af de her områder, fordi det er jo, vi er altså 27 meget forskellige lande på det her område. Det tror jeg var min første indledning. Så håber jeg, at der er nogen af jer, der har lyst til at stille spørgsmål, eller byde ind med kommentarer, eller komme med noget viden, som jeg skal have til mit arbejde. Det håber jeg også virkelig på.
Kan du høre mig nu her?
Ja.
Ja. Er der nogen derude, der sidder med nogle spørgsmål? Ellers så kan jeg måske lægge ud og varme lidt op. Den her handlingsplan, som altså EU's handlingsplan for den sociale økonomi, kan man sige, er kommet til verden gennem med en masse input fra en hel masse forskellige mennesker, og den er ligesom lavet som opfølgning på et andet initiativ, der kørte jo den her social business plan, som har kørt fra 2011, eller social business initiative, som har kørt fra 2011 og så til nu. Så den kan man sige erstatter både og ligesom løfter det her område videre til næste område, eller til næste periode, som jo varer frem til 2030, altså samme periode, som FN's verdensmåls indfrielse ligger i. Så der er selvfølgelig lidt tid til at nå det, kan man sige. Men det er en hel masse initiativ for at hjælpe de her organisationer, der er i den her økonomi, altså kooperative og socialøkonomiske virksomheder, velgørende organisationer osv., som arbejder på alle de forhold, som du blandt andet har beskrevet, men også nogle af dem på kulturelle og nogle af dem på miljømæssige forhold. Så det vi kunne tænke os er simpelthen at få en politisk indgang, hvor man kunne, kan man sige, få pustet lidt liv i det danske politiske system igen i forhold til at interessere sig, i hvert fald på nationalplan, altså på lokalplan er der flere kommuner, der også er stadigvæk interesseret i det her og ligesom arbejder videre selv, men hvordan vi sådan på nationalt plan kan få genoplivet det her potentiale som en politisk interesse i forhold til for eksempel at skabe job til udsatte grupper af mennesker, eller at løfte den grønne dagsorden, og også den digitale omstilling, kan man sige, på en mere social måde. Ikke? Men det her er også nogle af de virksomheder, som jeg ved er en af Socialdemokratiets mærkesager, der vil være med til at kunne løfte en grøn omstilling, der også tager hensyn til ikke at slå igennem skævt socialt. Så et spørgsmål på den her lange indflyvning, det er, ved du, hvordan vi kan finde ud af, hvem det er, der er den danske minister for det her område? Hvem er ansvarlig for socialøkonomien, eller for at implementere den her plan. Og hvis ikke du ved det, ved du så hvordan?
Det vil være Astrid Krag. Jeg kan ikke se, hvem ellers.
Det tænker jeg også, det er, men altså, den behandling, der har været af det herhjemme, er noget, som Erhvervsstyrelsen har taget sig af, fordi der ligger den her registreringsordning for socialøkonomiske virksomheder. Den ligger jo selvfølgelig der, fordi, hvad skal man sige, at
det er erhverv, det er et selskab.
det er virksomhedsregistrering, ikke? Så det falder naturligt der.
Men selve indholdet, det lyder altså mere som vores socialminister.
Ja. Hvordan kunne man få lavet den her kobling mellem den her handlingsplan? Nu hørte du jo selv Margit fortælle, at det første indledende møde for ministre, der var der 23 ud af EU's 27 medlemsstater. Og de 4 af dem, der ikke var der, deraf var Danmark den ene. Så Danmark har ikke prioriteret den her handlingsplan endnu. Ved du, hvordan man kunne arbejde videre for?
Jamen, jeg kan måske svare på, hvorfor at det ikke er blevet prioriteret. Jeg er ret sikker på, at det er fordi, at der ikke er et ønske om, at det skal være EU-lovgivning på området. Men det er godt, at vi har nogle hensigtserklæringer, og alle lande skal arbejde i den retning. Men derfra til, at det skal være EU-lovgivning, det er et meget, meget stort skridt. Så jeg tror, det er derfor, at de har sendt signalet.
Ja, altså, men jeg tror faktisk, det var noget af det. Nu hørte du ikke Margits indlæg, desværre, men altså, der, vi vil meget gerne give dig input og, informere dig og klæde dig på, eller hvad det nu er, det hedder.
Meget gerne, ja.
Så du har de her info, men altså, det hun siger er jo netop, at alle EU-landene ligesom har deres egen måde at implementere det på.
Ja.
Der er bare et helt katalog af handlemuligheder foreslået fra EU, som man kan benytte sig af. For eksempel når det drejer sig om sociale indkøb, jamen, så er det jo ligesom noget, man skal gøre på sin egen måde. Men der kunne man for eksempel kigge til Frankrig, som har haft nogle meget intensive tilgange til det her med at få de offentlige udbud til at indeholde altså klausuler omkring miljø eller sociale forhold. Man har også lavet de her social impact bonds, altså sådan nogle aftaler om offentligheden, det offentlige, der betaler for at en social indsats, man kan også kalde det sociale investeringer, altså at en social indsats ligesom giver et udkomme eller har en impact. Og hvis den sørger for, at man for eksempel har en besparelse på gentagende kriminalitet, jamen, så kan det offentlige gå ind og give penge tilbage til den investor, der har investeret den her indsats, som så en socialøkonomisk virksomhed for eksempel har lavet. Ikke? Så der har Frankrig lavet en stor indsats, som man for eksempel kunne kigge på. Og sådan er der mange eksempler, hvor at vi kunne kigge hen for at få inspiration. Så det er ikke ligesom, kan man sige, der er ikke ligesom tale om, at EU skal komme og lovgive på det område. Det er mere et katalog af handlemuligheder, hvor vi så finder vores egen mulighed. Men for at kunne gøre det, så skal vi jo ligesom så skal vi have læst handlingsplanen for eksempel, eller vi skal have kigget ind i kataloget af de muligheder, der er, eller vi skal være til stede, når at vi taler om det. Så det er egentlig, det er for at prøve at komme lidt tættere på, hvordan kunne du for eksempel hjælpe os med at få hævet det danske politiske system til truet, havde jeg sagt?
Altså jeg tror, at det vil være et godt forsøg at tage fat i at skrive til Astrid Krag. Ja. Fordi hun har faktisk et meget stort hjerte for området, så jeg kunne sagtens forestille mig, at hun kunne være interesseret i det. Så jeg synes klart, det er et forsøg værd. Og så kan det godt være en del, at det ligger hos erhvervsministeren, og det er jo fuldstændig ret i, fordi alt omkring selskaber, det er jo erhvervsministeren. Men når vi snakker indholdet, så har hun et meget stort hjerte der.
Det tror jeg helt bestemt, hun har. Så det kunne være en måde at komme videre med det på, altså at tage en direkte henvendelse til hende for eksempel, eller?
Ja, Det vil være en god idé. Helt klart en god idé. Og så synes jeg, vi skal snakke videre.
Meget gerne.
Det vil vi gerne, i hvert fald, ja. Så,
Jon, du har et spørgsmål, kan jeg se.
Ja, jeg vidste ikke helt, hvem der var ordstyrer. Og det er ærgerligt at sidde og bruge tiden på at sidde og tale om, hvordan vi får gang i de danske politikere. Det tænker jeg, at vi måske virkelig er tættest på at håndtere herhjemme selv. Og jeg er også stærkt i tvivl om, at Astrid Krag er den rigtige. Grundlæggende tror jeg, at problemstillingen for vores regering er, at de har været rigtig bange traditionelt for fortrængning og har i virkeligheden været bekymret for, at socialøkonomiske virksomheder kunne gå ind og skubbe andre mennesker, altså skubbe folk ud af arbejdsmarkedet. Men det er sådan en betragtning, som jeg ikke tænker, jeg vil bruge tid på her. Det, som jeg synes i forhold til den position, du har, Marianne, og tusind tak, fordi du er med. Jeg sidder som branchedirektør i noget, der hedder Sætter i Danmark, som repræsenterer de selvejende og som sådan også socialøkonomiske virksomheder på velfærdsområdet. Og jeg ser egentlig den store problemstilling i sådan en form for afkoblethed. Altså, der foregår rigtig mange spændende ting på EU-plan med en række projekter, der bliver lavet helt tilbage til 2011 med Social Business Initiative. Og så har vi i Danmark en række socialøkonomiske virksomheder, som ofte er relativt, nogle er store, men mange er jo også små. Og i virkeligheden, de to systemer, det er som om, de ikke rigtig mødes. Altså, så i virkeligheden tænker jeg, i stedet for at du skal sidde og rådgive og sige, hvilken minister vi skal kontakte os i, så vil jeg egentlig hellere sende en opgave ned, så er der lidt tættere på, nemlig, hvis du skal arbejde for noget, så er det måske at prøve at arbejde på, hvordan vi får skabt en platform, der gør det lidt mere tilgængeligt, eller på en eller anden måde skaber nogle møder, som en relativt mindre dansk socialøkonomisk virksomhed kan se sig selv i. Altså hvor det ikke bliver for komplekst, altså hvor man fundamentalt set føler sig inviteret og kan se, at der er nogle tilkoblinger, man kan gå ned i, uden man skal lave en større politisk analyse af forskellige EU-systemer, fordi det tror jeg faktisk er en problemstilling. Og så er en eneste anden ting, som måske kan være et mere generelt input, det er, husk, at socialøkonomiske virksomheder ikke kan løse alting. Så pas på, at man ikke får taget det her begreb op og sagt, at så kan vi også putte den grønne omstilling på de socialøkonomiske virksomheder. Alt er muligt, fordi det bliver til sidst fuldstændig komplet umuligt at drive en socialøkonomisk virksomhed, hvis man skal løse så mange samfundsproblemer på en og samme gang. Altså jeg synes egentlig allerede, den der kobling af, at man skal være en demokratisk organiseret, altså det kan man faktisk godt sætte sig ned og diskutere. Ikke fordi jeg har noget som helst imod, at man er det, men hvis man arbejder med hjemløse, og man virkelig gør en stor indsats, man inddrager dem, hvorfor så koble det på? Så er der jo så mange andre ting, man kunne koble på, som også gav mening. Så det her med at tro, at socialøkonomi er en redningsplanke for snart sagt hvad som helst, tror jeg, man skal fare lidt med lempe, og så skal man tænke, at det her, det handler om det formål, de har. Og det er det formål, de skal ud og arbejde for. Og det er jo defineret i definitionen, det skal være et socialt formål, så det er jo ikke, fordi der er nogen, der har et dårligt formål. Så en kobling, der gør det lettere for os at tage fat i EU-systemet, fordi det koster tid og penge, som man ofte ikke har. Og så den der opmærksomhed på, at vi kan altså ikke løse alle samfundets problemer i socialøkonomiske virksomheder. Tak.
Nå, det er super godt, Jon. Og jeg tror, jeg tror, du har ret i den der bekymring, der har været tidligere for, om socioøkonomiske virksomheder, de skubbede andre virksomheder ud af markedet, eller overtog andre job og unfair konkurrence, og der har været mange af den slags bekymringer. Men det er jo ikke unfair konkurrence, fordi vilkårene er jo slet ikke sammenlignelige, så det er det jo ikke. Og så har jeg også sådan en kæphest, at alle andre virksomheder har også et socialt ansvar. Det går simpelthen ikke, at alle andre virksomheder i Danmark siger, men der er nogle socioøkonomiske virksomheder, de må klare det hele. Altså vi andre, vi vil kun have ordinært ansatte imellem 35 og 50 år, og de må ikke have nogen barns sygedag, og de skal bare arbejde. Jamen, alles liv går op og ned, og alle virksomheder har et ansvar for at skabe en rummelig arbejdsplads, hvor der er plads til alle. Og så er der socioøkonomiske virksomheder, præcis som du siger, som skal have en niche, der præcis dækker det formål, og ikke overtage alle mulige andre problemer. Altså, jeg er helt på linje med dig med den her. Og så, du har fuldstændig ret, fordi der er jo steder, fonde, der er mulighed for at få penge fra EU til nogle projekter af forskellige art, og systemet er bare gigantisk tungt. Det er, altså, og det er det også her på mit arbejde. Jeg anede ikke, der fandtes så mange blanketter stadigvæk. Det er bare et meget, meget tungt system, og desværre også nødvendigt, fordi der er jo svindel, så derfor bliver det bare ekstra bureaukratisk, og det er bare tungt. Der burde jo være og jeg har kørt det fra flere og flere, det her, der burde være et dansk sted, hvor man kunne kontakte og direkte få hjælp til de her ting. Altså jeg ved, at de forskellige regioner i Danmark, de har lobbykontorer her i Bruxelles. Og de kan i nogle sammenhæng faktisk være ret behjælpelige. Jeg ved ikke, om jeg har kontakt med nogle af de her regionskontorer. Fordi de kan faktisk være behjælpelige nogle gange med at skabe kontakten til præcis. Fordi hvis man bare starter med EU's hjemmeside, hvor skal jeg lede hen, det er jo håbløst. Men de her kontorer, de har en meget mere præcis idé om, hvor kan man hente penge til den her type projekt.
Jeg tænkte på, at vi måske kunne trække lidt på markedet her, fordi hun nævnte en ting, som hedder sådan en gateway, altså hvor at hele den sociale økonomi ligesom kan komme hen og finde alle oplysninger i forhold til for eksempel EU. Så det kan være, at jeg lige kan trække, maybe I could use you a little bit here, Margit, on a question about making EU possibilities more accessible for the smaller businesses in Denmark, for example. There's a question here. So can you say a little bit more about the gateway that you talked about? Would it be possible to have sort of an access point where smaller businesses could find information in Danish, for example, on possibilities in the EU?
Yes, that's basically the idea. We are currently exploring the scope. So for sure, it will cover EU funding opportunities. We also want to venture a bit into the national opportunities so that we also have information on the various member states that will take a bit more time to compile and also to keep accurate over time. We also are thinking of some kind of matchmaking, maybe where we can help people to find partners, because often for European partners, for European projects, you need partners across borders to apply together or something like that. So there are some options that we will be looking into, and we will try to do something that is really useful and that really gives guidance to find your way between all the EU programs. So the idea is better to do a bit less, but then really useful, than to try to do a lot of things and then do none of them really well. So we will have to see that we will gradually, hopefully, grow the portal. So start maybe a bit more modest. For example, like having a kind of simple questionnaire, like I am X and I'm searching for funding in area Y or so that you can at least point them to certain programs. And then ideally it should also incorporate like a bit more step-by-step guidance. What does it really need in practice, and how can you reach out to intermediaries and European networks, and who could possibly help? And yeah, so we will try to do something in this direction. Still very much to be defined in more detail, but we are very aware of the problem that many social economy stakeholders tell us it's very difficult to find your way to the funding. And yeah, that's what we are trying to do with this gateway.
Super. Thank you very much, Margit, and thank you for being with us. I think that I will probably close the meeting here, because we have both you and Marianne, who has a deadline. Så tusind tak, fordi du kunne være med, Marianne, og tusind tak til alle. Husk, at oplægget her, eller webinaret her, er optaget, så man kan finde både slides og gense, hvis der var noget, man lige ville kigge efter. Så tak fordi I deltog, og god vinter ude i det socialøkonomiske landskab.
God eftermiddag.
Hej.